Constitution says that we have the right to consume cannabis.
I think Willie Nelson should be president.
Open up, Colorado. It's 420. Time to grind and burn.
This is not your son's stoner show.
Welcome to the Grind and Burn, a podcast from the Cannabis Community Project. I am Brainstorm, once again bringing you your weekly podcast about the business side of cannabis from the Dank Studios at 3835 Elm Street, Denver, Colorado, while living the lifestyle. Hey, Cannapreneurs, let me take a second just to tell you about Cushley Organic Products. Their company puts out products that are used in hospitals, healthcare facilities, clinics, and homes throughout the United States and beyond. So Cushley has invented this very unique product that works like none other. I use it myself, and many of my close friends and family use it. What it does is it eliminates odor. It doesn't mask it. It's not a perfume. It's not a cologne. It eliminates it. And it's organic and it's non-toxic. And Cushley is one of the best. www.cushley.com. Also find them on Facebook and other social media under the same name, Cushley Organic Products. Welcome back, Cannapreneurs, and thank you for joining me for another week of the Grind and Burn. I am Brainstorm, broadcasting from the Dank Studios in very cold Denver, Colorado. That's right, it's prematurely cold here in Denver. Despite the cold weather, we're still going to be heating it up here at the Cannabis Community Project because I want to make sure to tell you about Fire and Ice Christmas party we're looking at down the line coming up mid or early December. We haven't set an exact date yet. But we're going to have a fire and ice, and you can imagine what the fire will be all about. Fire and ice show, we're going to pick a local reservoir or lake surrounding the Denver metro area where we will have our end of the year Christmas blowouts. We're going to have real food, not the cheap chips and dips and baby carrot stuff. When was the last time you ate a baby carrot outside of a networking event? No, we're going to have real food, catered in food, live music, the good stuff, the kind you actually have to pay money for, not from your local high school band that's willing to work for free. Maybe some CCP musicians, you know them, the ones you've been hearing on the show all year long. Maybe Young Fate will come in. Maybe we can get Reason to Rebel to come out. Maybe we can get Portobello Road to sit in for a set. We'll get it all worked out for the Fire and Ice end of the year Cannabis Community Project party that we'll be putting together. That is, as long as there still is ice. It's so cold. And then 3 days later, it's heating up here in Denver. It's really weird. We've had 3 days of below freezing temperatures, and then just prior to that, it was up around 70, and then a week before that, it was in the 80s. This is a very weird year. They're predicting very strange things this summer. So thank you, global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it. Thank you for doing this, for throwing our status quo 4-season Christmas in the winter culture off. Thank you to all you deniers who refuse to look at what is happening to the earth. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus. Because you always have to thank Jesus. But something is happening. I don't know what it is, but something is definitely happening. There's some major things going on, not just because it's an election year, not because it's a big cannabis year and there's policy on the ballots in so many states. There's something going on. Now, you're probably saying, Brainstorm, why are you so fired up this week? What's with all the political talk? What's with all the activist ranting? Well, maybe my guest this week is rubbing off on me as I'm thinking about 2017 and what my role is in media here on the Cannabis Community Project. Not just this show, The Grind and Burn, and not just the other shows of Beyond Sanity and a new one coming soon, but also what is my role as a proprietor of media and sometimes news, but just a voice, really. I guess a channel into an audience, you guys, Cannapreneurs. What is my role? And that's what my conversation this week with my very special guest, Lee Camp from Redacted Tonight. I talked to him about his upcoming, where he came from, how he got started, and also what his current message is all about to the world, and what his show, Redacted Tonight, and his podcast, Moment of Clarity, are all about. Very interesting stuff. So he has a show, he's known as a comedian, and he's also known to be an activist and kind of a quasi-news journalist, although he doesn't classify himself as that. He says he's first and foremost a comedian. He's coming to Denver this week. By the time you've heard this, he will have already come and gone, so I'll just say now it was a great show, funny stuff. We hung out all night long and partied afterwards. If you've never heard of him, go to YouTube and type in Redacted Tonight, watch a few shows. It follows the Daily Show format, that clip show news style. You know, I would put Redacted Tonight up there in the echelon of those who cross the boundaries of journalism and comedy and bring it together in such a way that a pure truth comes out of it. And I'm talking about those like John Oliver on HBO. I don't know what his show is. Does he actually have a show? But his style of comedy and news. I'm also talking about The Daily Show, Jon Stewart version, and the new Trevor Noah version, right? It's still holding the same format. And the late and great Larry Wilmore. Who knows what happened there? I used to watch that show. Funny stuff. Also very raw truth. So what does it mean to be up there running with the crowd of journalists and comedians walking that same line? Well, that's what Lee Camp is going to give us some insight to in our conversation today. All right. Well, there you go. I'm excited for you to hear this conversation. So let's get right into it. Before we do, let's quickly jump back to last week's episode. A quick refresher on our short-term memory relapse flashback. You hear last week's show with Nancy Fingerhood, who's also a comedian in the cannabis industry, also with a YouTube show. Quickly take a couple minutes, learn about that show. If you didn't hear it, go back and listen to the full thing. Click, share, like, comment. Let everybody know you're part of the community, the Cannabis Community Project. And then we'll get into this week's show with Lee Camp from Redacted Tonight. There we go, Cannapreneurs. Grind and burn.
My name is Nancy Fingerhood, and I am the creator of a web series called Mile High Nancy. It's about an aspiring comedian who is also a single mother by choice, which means she used a sperm donor. And she also hosts a 420-friendly cooking show on cable access television. That's her way of paying her bills and providing for her daughter. But her dream is to be a stand-up comedian.
Well, I think it's different types of comedy. I think it's like with anything, you have comedy world, but then you have different aspects of that comedy world. And so you have your slapsticks or, you know, things that you can kind of just tune out and it's just like America's Funniest Videos, just funny. But then there's comedians that are going deeper to what you said, trying to get people to think and see how this does play in my life.
I should say my goal is to be a great wife and mother. I should say that. Like, I kind of made people laugh when I would talk to them, kind of have conversations and tell funny stories and stuff. But I know that stand-up isn't just getting up there and telling funny stories. I remember this one joke I told about, you know, and I don't want to look old. I can't remember my joke, but it was about looking like an old hooker, and then people would laugh a little, and then it would go, and I don't want to look old. And it was an open mic, and nobody was laughing at that joke. And then I said that one line, and I don't want to look old, and this one comedian in the audience went, ha! And he meant it, you know? And then I was like, oh, that's a good joke. You know, I probably wasn't as into it until I moved out to Colorado. Because when I moved out to Colorado, it was 12 years ago, and it was just seemed like such a 420 friendly state. And like it just didn't have the criminal, you know, back in New Jersey, I think, isn't it like a felony or something? I don't know, whatever. It's criminalized more out there. It was. And so I didn't do it as much. You know, I did it like once every couple of months, honestly. But here it was just so readily available, even before legalization. That was kind of liberating for me, you know, moving out here and being like 99% of the people out here smoke pot. Few things. I have a YouTube channel called Mile High Nancy. So I do have a segment on there. It's a cooking segment, cooking with marijuana. I have my blog, Confessions of a Middle-Aged Woman Gone Wild. You can also check out our video and photography page, vividimpressionsproductions.com. And I think that's it. I'm also on Twitter under Mile High Nancy. Or is it Oive Productions? I can't remember.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming down to the studio today, hanging out with us, chatting.
It was fun.
Thank you. You want to say bye?
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Me too.
Very good.
You're so cute.
How long have you been listening to the show? Long enough to know that it's your show, and all you got to do to be on it is just reach out to us at cannabiscommunityproject.com or email brainstorm at cannabiscommunityproject.com. Complete this sentence. I wish I had someone with whom I could share...
How about, I wish I had someone I could share more weed with.
Like more smoking partners?
Yeah, I wish I had more people that were open to the thought of cannabis being a drug and instead being a right.
Like, do you feel...
Fuck it. Go prepare for your death.
You feel like we're friends now?
Go to the grind and I'm gonna make the dollar.
And now the excited Southerner proposes to a girl.
Man, I doubt it.
Look, are you trying to ask me to marry you? Because I'm really not ready for that kind of commitment.
Somewhere in the Black Mountain, he loved a cold river, young boy named Rocky Raccoon. Well, one day his woman ran off with another guy. He hit young Rocky and I. Well, Rocky didn't like that. He said, I'm gonna get that boy. So one day he walked into town and booked himself a room up in the local saloon. Oh, Rocky Raccoon, he checked into his room only to find Gideon's Bible. Well, Rocky had come equipped with a gun to shoot all the blades of his rival. Ooh, well, his rival, it seems, had broken his dreams by stealing a girl of his fancy. Well, her name was McGill. Ooh, and she called herself Little, but everyone knew her as Nancy. Well, now she and her man, who called himself Dan, were in the next room at the hold down. Well, now Rocky burst in and grin. He said, down and boy, this is a showdown. Oh, my Daniel was hot. Well, he drew first and he shot, and Rocky collapsed in the corner. No, yeah, Well, the doctor came in, stinking of gin, and proceeded to lie on the table. He said, no, Rocky, you match your match. And Rocky said, no, Rocky's only a scratch. And I'll be better as soon as I am able. So Rocky Raccoon, he They fell back into his room, only to find Gideon's Bible. Well, Gideon checked out, and he left it no doubt to help with Good Rocky's revival.
So, because I don't want to take up a lot of your time, I thought I would just kind of summarize for you what your Wikipedia says kind of about you. And that way you don't have to spend a lot of time rehashing stuff that I'm sure you probably repeat on every single talk show, radio show, podcast that you do. So if that's cool with you, let me just recap what Wikipedia says, and then you can tell me if anything's wrong, missing, or...
All right. The part about how I landed on the moon is not accurate.
What it does say is that you grew up on the East Coast. Dad was a psychoanalyst in the military, mom social worker. You started doing comedy at a young age, writing stuff, getting stuff published in magazines, went to the University of Virginia, and then moved to New York where you started doing stand-up comedy. You got your name out there, doing some appearances. You got a big viral video on Fox News where you kind of went against the grain. You have your podcast since 2011, I believe, Moment of Clarity, which you'll have to explain the exact overlap of how that works with Redacted Tonight. But up to this point, you're mostly known for stand-up comedy and the Redacted Tonight show. Is that more or less kind of your essence in a 30-second snapshot?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Once I bowled a 135, I don't know if it has that in there. Otherwise, sounds pretty good.
The one thing I want to start at is where I guess you got to be more known as you started to do some stand-up out of New York. Would you say that was the beginning of this career path that you've been on?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I knew I wanted to be a humor writer since I was like 12, and then I wanted to do stand-up comedy as well once I was like 17. So I started doing stand-up comedy in college and basically was just itching to get out of college so I could move to New York and become a stand-up comedian, and that's basically what it was. So I had done some performing and stuff before I left for New York. But yeah, I went up there and performed in thousands of different kinds of shows, comedy clubs, and touring the country at colleges. I was what might be called a college comedian for several years there, where, you know, your material, especially if you're one of the younger ones and you're not being booked because you host the Late Show or something, you're being booked just as a standard comedian to perform at the college. Your material needs to be, it doesn't have to be clean usually, but it has to be kind of not that unusual. Once I started, my stuff became more and more political. It didn't really fit with what they were looking for at colleges anymore.
And they kicked you out.
Well, they just stopped booking you.
Do you consider yourself a comedian or more of a political commentator?
I consider myself a comedian first and foremost. I mean, that's my background and everything. And so the laughter is pretty much tied with getting important messages, important news out there. I do feel like both are kind of equally important to me, but I don't want to call myself just a journalist because ideally, in a perfect world, a journalist is someone who has gone to school for journalism and learned how to do it right and has all kinds of journalism rules that they abide by. Now, we don't really live in that world anymore, but that's what I prefer my journalist to be, and I'm just a comedian who talks about the things in the news that are not getting talked about.
I would put you in the lineup of TV personalities who do journalism and comedy comedy in the same sense of John Oliver and Jon Stewart. The same idea of taking political commentary with humor, but actually having an underlying basis of real journalism going on, where we're actually learning about news. And when I watch your show, that's the sense I get, and I hope that's what you're going for, because it comes across as you guys are kind of like journalists, and I don't know the backstories of all the people that work with you on your team. Can you give me a snapshot of what the overall team is that you're working with and how you go about gathering content for the podcast and the TV show?
Yeah, they're awesome. It's John F. O'Donnell, who you see on the show, Naomi Caravani, and Philip Chang. We've had other correspondents who have come and gone, Carlos Delgado, Abby Feldman, Sam Sachs. But for the most part, with the exception of Sam Sachs, no one comes from a journalism background. We all come from a comedy background. I'm the head writer and the host of the show and pretty much write everything I say. And then the other correspondents write and research what they say, largely. So there's no team of journalists working behind the scenes. It's just us, looking for the redacted stories. I'm always looking for the news that isn't being covered. And I've always, not just from a justice sense, I mean, that's part of why I talk about what I talk about is because I feel like we need to make changes in this world. We need to bend our path forward towards justice and sustainability instead of the other direction. And so that's part of why I pick the stories I pick. But another reason is I get quickly bored by stuff that is over talked about, over analyzed, where it's like everybody in America knows what Trump said 2 days ago. And you don't, for me to have, 26 minutes a week, or we kind of do 2 shows a week, so twice that, and to spend it talking about, Trump said something dumb, is like, it just seems pretty futile and dumb to me. So yes, I'll make a Trump joke here and there, but for the most part, the story, the topic, what I really want to go after is something deeper, or something that is sometimes censored, sometimes just left out of our mainstream media. So those are really the stories I'm looking for.
Do you have any barriers to what you broadcast or how you're editing or any content out there? Do you have any type of oversight from either the network you're broadcasting through or any other, I guess, overseers?
Well, there's oversight in the sense that every network has news directors and things, or Comedy Central, they have whatever director. So, I mean, it's how any business works. However, I have complete freedom with my show. And I think if people look at the people that are on the opinion side of RT America, you've got Larry King, Jesse Ventura, Tom Hartman, Chris Hedges. These are people with a long history of saying what they want, and especially in the case of Tom Hartman, Jesse Ventura, Chris Hedges, and formerly Abby Martin, not towing some kind of line, but instead talking about these important stories that we talk about, the corporate takeover of our nation, really. So no, I don't have restrictions, but I do understand that I was brought there to keep doing what I was doing before I came to RT America. I had a YouTube show for 3.5 years that was called Moment of Clarity. It was relatively popular, and like you said, I still have a podcast called Moment of Clarity and a book called Moment of Clarity. And all those things line up with the same stuff I'm talking about now. Sometimes, sadly, it's the same damn story that hasn't changed over all those years, such as the Trans-Pacific Partnership that I've been talking about for 5 years. So, yes, I realize that if I suddenly change who I am and what I talk about there, as with any network, they're going to be like, well, we thought you were going to keep being the person you were before. We didn't think you were going to come here and, start telling jokes about Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie all day long.
Can you give me a behind-the-scenes look, since I'm also a semi-media person? I'm always very curious. How do you do your podcast and your show with your overall production? Can you give me just some insight to the production aspect?
Yeah, I mean, so the podcast has had different manifestations, although a lot of similarity over the years. But, for a while it was me talking for an hour and then sometimes interview people and stuff. But once I started Redacted Tonight, which is actually 2 shows now a week, the second Redacted Tonight is an interview show. And by the way, all of this is at youtube.com/Redacted Tonight. When I started doing that, obviously the time commitments of that, researching, writing, interviewing, all of it were too much to keep doing a podcast where I, chit-chat for an hour each day. So the podcast is now just the audio of the 2 episodes of Redacted Tonight, which, especially for the interview show, the audio works pretty damn well in terms of an enjoyable podcast to listen to. So yeah, that's the podcast. That airs once a week. And then in terms of the two shows, I taped them at RT America Studios, and we filmed the episode with a live studio audience, filmed that one on Thursday night, and it airs Friday, and so we spend the week getting the stories ready, doing the writing, getting the graphics ready, and then hopefully pull it off, basically what's called live to tape, which is when you act like it's live, so it's all filmed within a half an hour. There's not really any retakes unless something goes horribly wrong, which almost never happens. So it's filmed as if it's live, but then it doesn't air until the following day. I've bleeped out the curse words.
And the live audience at the beginning was, I'm not sure if it was a tongue-in-cheek type joke or if it was just a very monotone pitch of, hey, we have a live audience and there's maybe one person clapping, and then over the months you could hear more and more people sounding like they were getting in the studio. How big is the studio and how big is that actual live audience?
Well, it was never one person. It was always, it is a tiny studio. And so here's what happened is when RT America said, can you make a comedy show for us? And they have no other comedy shows, so I'm the only one. They said, can you make a comedy show for us? And I said, absolutely. And then I said, I need a live audience, though. And they said, oh, we don't do live audiences. We're a news studio mainly, so we can't have a live audience. And I said, oh, no, we got to have a live audience. And they said, oh, no, we don't really do that. And I said, oh, no, we need a live audience. It changes the dynamic of everything. It changes the way you interact. It changes the way you deliver things with a live audience. So, and, I came up from 15 years of stand-up comedy where I understand how important the audience is. So we did, ultimately, I won that little argument, and we have a live audience, but it is a small studio, so it only has about 30, 35 people in there. And maybe at the beginning of the show, the first 20 episodes or something, we maybe only had 20 people, so it probably sounded like less. We also hadn't mic'd them correctly necessarily, so the miking of the audience was, I was the only one mic'd, which meant that they showed up not as loud. We're trying to explain to people that we do have a live audience, but I think people are just so used to the 200-person Daily Show audience in a completely different type of studio, built completely differently with bleacher seating and everything, that they're not used to what 35 people sound like. And so some people still love to be like, oh, get rid of the fake laugh track. And I'm like, it's not the fake laugh track. And if you'd like to talk to the people and about how you think they're fake, then you can do that.
Now, your show has both feels. It has the feel of there's some actual production there, but it also has a very, YouTube style, very home direct feel to it. What is the ultimate goal here? Are you trying to work beyond YouTube and to bigger and bigger networks? Are you just trying to build a bigger audience but stay on a digital platform? How do you see this playing out over the next 5 years?
Well, a lot of our views are definitely online. I think television is, going the way of the dinosaurs. So it airs on TV and it does air internationally, where I think some other countries, more people still watch on television. So it is on TVs. But yeah, we do have a big online viewership. And I imagine things may keep going that way for all of media. So for us, as well as the rest of media, I think online will continue to be where it's at, or increasingly be where it's at. I want the show to look as polished as possible, as long as, we're able to continue talking about the things we want to talk to. So my thought process is not like, what's the biggest network I can ever be at? Because most of the big networks have they make you toe a very specific line. You can look at just the amount of coverage that, let's say, third parties get, which is almost none, or the amount of coverage that even Bernie Sanders got. Trump got 23 times as much coverage during the primaries as Bernie Sanders did. So that shows you how much you have to toe this very precise line to be on those networks, and that's why I'm not there, and that's why I don't think I'll be there anytime soon. Having the freedom to talk about the basically corporate totalitarianism we live in is a rare thing, and I'm happy to do it at Redacted Tonight, but it's not a thing that's welcome at a lot of networks. You even look at someone like Cenk Uygur, who's, he's left-wing, but he'll criticize Obama when he thinks he's done something wrong, and so he went to MSNBC, had a very highly rated show for about 2 months before they said, hey, you got to stop criticizing Obama. He said no, and then he was gone. And, you see that over and over again. There's a whole string of hosts that basically it didn't matter how successful their shows were. If you're not going to toe the line and get out of here.
You own your show in the sense of, like, it's your business, your production company, your show, your name, copyright that type of setup?
Well, no. I mean, Archie America owns it, but I co-created it, and it's my tone, and the words are all mine, and no one's telling me what to write. So in that way, I own that part.
If approached, would you consider taking Larry Wilmore's place on Comedy Central after The Daily Show?
Well, first of all, you have to realize that the Comedy Central, as far as I know, wants nothing to do with me. So again, you have to be within a certain parameter of thought to be allowed on those networks. And I don't know the details of why Larry Wilmore was let go, but it could have been that he was outside of what they were comfortable with in terms of topics. And again, this is not to say that Daily Show never makes fun of Walmart, because Walmart's a sponsor or whatever, but it means you can't do it on a daily basis. You can't go after Walmart all the time and have them sponsor the show at the same time. It really keeps things within a certain area.
Are you considered a rebel amongst the media community, an activist? Are you looked at as dangerous in the sense of the type of comedy and commentary you're bringing forth is just not in line with mainstream media, so therefore they look at you as the enemy? What is your reaction with other media outlets?
I don't know if they care what I'm doing. I don't know that I'm that scary to them. I mean, I think that a lot of them live in a bubble, and so they don't even know or care what I'm talking about. Occasionally, you'll see one of them kind of alerted to my presence or our presence at Redacted Tonight. The Washington Post magazine did a little spread on me, but in general, I think they try and ignore it because they want to stay in their bubble. They want to stay and think that the outside thoughts are not that important. And by outside, I mean outside the two-party system, outside the kind of acceptance of a completely unsustainable system. They want to undermine it by ignoring it and by acting like it's not that important. But in fact, now polling shows that independents are 42% of America. And yet they talk about third parties as if they're some sort of plague or something that needs to be ignored to kill it. So I think they ignore outside thought to their own detriment. They need to wake up about where the world's headed.
Well, I really feel like for all my connections that you're probably the most shared and the most retweeted information source when it comes to third party and alternative news. I kind of don't like using that term, but just non-mainstream type news. You're probably the most person I see within my network and many others of just being retweeted and shared.
Thanks.
No problem. I don't mean to sit here and just kind of blow smoke up the whole time, but I watch what you do, and I think you're really setting a model for other people who want to get involved in either the media game or politics and just get involved in general activism, which is kind of what I see your show providing as an outlet for people to be activists and involved in media and involved in humor. You don't have to be angry just because you're an activist. And I see your show really leading that type of model.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that people don't get burnt out too quickly, and they don't think that just because you have one failure in one effort to change something that they need to give up. I mean, I hope all the people that were kind of activated under Bernie Sanders don't give up, because change takes a long time, and the quote unquote failed movements like Sanders or like Occupy are not actually failed. If you are able to look back 20 years from now, they create a movement that kind of ripples through society and isn't necessarily a straight line. So I don't know that the Bernie Sanders movement, or whatever you want to call it, would have done nearly that well, or even maybe a tenth of that well, if Occupy hadn't existed. So it was kind of the simmering rage and energy of Occupy that waited a couple of years after being broken up to then reignite under Bernie Sanders. And now that he has let go of his campaign or whatever, let's hope that energy and that rage continues to simmer and flame up in a new way that can make greater change. So, yeah, I don't think people should get burned out, and I think one way to do that is to make activism sexy and fun and hilarious, and it needs to be kind of a way of life in a way.
Would you ever consider politics yourself, running for some type of office on any level?
I hope not.
not if you can help it.
Things would have to get pretty desperate for that to happen, but I don't know. Who knows? If a reality star can run for president.
But is this what you do full time? Is RT and Moment of Clarity and this network, is this your full-time gig?
Yeah, I mean, it's beyond full-time. The amount of time I have to put into creating the shows each week. And then on top of that, I also do some stand-up. I do some touring. Yeah, so I still do stand-up on the weekends. I'm headed to Portland, Oregon, and hopefully Seattle and Los Angeles coming up. But yeah, all that certainly takes up all my time. Definitely a full-time gig.
The reason I ask is more of a kind of behind-the-scenes question again, is you don't have sponsors on your show. I'm curious how the whole thing supports itself. On your website, you have membership. Is that the main driver of support?
RT America is Russian-funded. So RT International is kind of a different entity from RT America, but then RT America has basically two sides to it. It has the opinion side and the news side. The news side, RT News, Russian-funded American news in English with American anchors. And then the opinion side is just performers and anchors or whatever that the organization has decided do good work and are generally outside of the mainstream talking points. So that's why it's me and Tom Hartman and Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges and Tom Hartman, widely respected progressive voices for, 30, 40 years now. Jesse Ventura, obviously, former governor. Sean Stone, Oliver Stone's son. Tyrell Ventura, and Larry King, of course.
So the network underwrites all the production and what's going on and keeps everybody employed.
Yeah.
Okay. So going out of this conversation, if somebody else wanted to get involved in one of the areas you're involved in, either media by doing a YouTube show or a podcast, they wanted to get involved in stand-up or comedy or just general politics and activism, is there anything you would suggest that people could avoid, or maybe that is not so common advice that other people probably say? And don't say something like follow your heart or, something like that. But do you have anything that, in your unique experience, I'm not sure what the step-by-step was along the way, but where you are today, what would you give somebody else form of advice that wanted to get involved and do something similar to what you're doing?
Well, rather than follow your heart, take it out and stomp on it, and then put the sludge back in, and then you'll have a stand-up comedy career. No, I think, so getting into like stand-up comedy or even one of the peripheral careers like the YouTube comedic commentary, even if you're not performing live, it is a long, hard business in a way, so you kind of have to think what you're getting into it for. Now, there are kind of stand-up comedy hobbyists that do it because they consider it's fun, but they're not trying to make a living at it, which is probably easier in some ways because you're not worried about where your next meal's coming from. But in terms of like stand-up comedy as a career and things, it just is a very long, hard career. And I still would have done it knowing that now. But I think that a lot of people think that it's just fun and then have fun for a while and then they put you on a TV show. And I think that people that get in thinking that often end up very kind of depressed and unhappy with their path. So you just have to think about what you're getting in for and what's important to you. And, the time that I think stuff started happening for me, meaning bigger than just performing for $25 at the comedy club, was when I started speaking from my heart in a kind of larger way. I decided I wanted to make the YouTube videos about political issues, whether they were getting tons of hits or not. I mean, at the beginning, you're lucky to get a dozen views on the first couple of videos or whatever. And once it started being for me in the sense that I was doing what I felt was important, whether it got 1,000 views or not, I think it does multiple things. It rings as true. What you're doing rings as like true, and you're not trying to be something you're not. You're not trying to pretend to, appear as something that you don't really believe in. But then also, even if you aren't getting those millions of views, there's still a contentment in that you're doing something important, or you're doing something you believe in. You have your passion in it. So in that way, I think that's when things started clicking for me, was when I was doing the stuff that wasn't necessarily what people said could be successful or earn money. I mean, nobody was like, hey, get into political comedy. Hey, stop telling observational jokes that everyone can relate to and tell jokes videos that only a fraction of the crowd cares about. You know, that career move, that dumb move. But it ended up working for me, at least so far, because it was what I cared about and really was my passion in comedy.
And it definitely helps to get a couple videos go viral from doing some opposition on Fox News. And
that's actually a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Not only did I not know that would go viral, so a couple of things. That was 2008. And in 2008, there was some clips from TV news online, but it wasn't like everything said on the news went online, whereas now it is. So I didn't think that would even be online. It was Fox News at 7 a.m. They invited me to be on. They knew I was liberal, but they thought I would play nice and kind of just go along with the flow of the show. But I felt I didn't care if they invited me back. I didn't care if it was bad for my career. I just decided I despise Fox News. I despise that they help sell the war in Iraq and therefore have, you know, the blood of 1 million people on their hands. And so I just went on and spoke the truth because I felt I had to. I honestly 100% did not believe it would be good for my career or would get a lot of views. But that clip then went viral and got millions of views and became kind of a calling card for me when people would look me up. But it also did hurt my career at first because I was making my money from touring colleges. And when colleges would look that up, they would think, oh, he's political, we don't want him. So it actually hurt my career for a couple of years. But I am very glad I did it, and it ended up being kind of a benefit. But it wasn't done out of some sort of like, oh, this will be great for my career.
Right. Like, let's go make a viral video. Yeah. It has to be authentic. That's what I like about your show is how 80% of the time you just discount Fox News as even existing, whereas the Daily Show spends 80% of their time jabbing at Fox News, where I kind of like the fact that you just don't even acknowledge them, and that kind of always makes me laugh.
Like I was saying earlier, to me that's just boring. I so rarely meet people that believe Fox News, and I get that a certain segment of America does, and that's why the ratings are better than the other networks, but I don't know those people, and those people are likely never going to watch more than 12 seconds of Redacted Tonight. So I don't feel like I really have to bother with people that think Fox News is a good news source. I do feel like I need to bother talking to people that think MSNBC is not biased, in that it completely ignored, Bernie Sanders and ignores third parties and manipulated polling, and same with CNN. So to me, that's where the edge lies. That's where the truth lies. That's where, people need to be educated on how manipulative our media is in general, not just the proto-fascist channel.
Well, that's definitely what I have come to notice over the last 2 years. 2 years now? How long have you actually been broadcasting the Redacted Tonight?
2.5
2.5 years. Weekly show, so 50-some shows a year, more or less?
We're at 118 Redacted Tonight, and of the interview show, we've done 30 weeks.
In those 118 shows, have you worn a different blazer, or has it been the same blazer the whole time?
You're kidding, right? You do notice that the blazers change. I have at least 5 blazers. I have like a black one, a gray one, and a blue one. If you don't notice that, then you need to have your eyes
I'm
checked.
not paying attention. Is this an intentional style that you're going for, or is this just kind of one more thing where being ironic in the sense of putting a blazer on while you do the show?
Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
I do feel like the show should look legit, but it's not like I wear a blazer and a tie in my regular life. I've never, at least not since I was 21, worked at a job where I had to wear a tie. I'm not going to do like the other anchors and dress up in a suit and tie, because to me that feels disingenuous, but I will throw on a blazer to make the show look like, hey, we give a half a crap here. We aren't just shrugging this off. So I do put on a blazer, but I often have on T-shirts with messages on them, like the one that says human I wear sometimes. It's got a barcode on it and says human. I've got another one that says atheist voter that I wear underneath. And then, of course, there's merely the fact that anybody with long hair and a beard wearing a blazer, something's off with them.
I love it, man. Your show cracks me up. I love everything about it. I learn, I laugh, and I don't miss it every week. And I recommend everybody watch it. It's on YouTube under Redacted Tonight. They can also find you personally, Twitter, Lee Camp, Facebook, Lee Camp Comedian. Any other social media contacts you want to throw out there?
That's about it. And yes, go to leecamp.net, and Twitter is @leecamp. Yeah.
Yes, I have to come by because I need to get a selfie with you. So when I broadcast this segment, I can at least have a proof of photo. All right, man. I appreciate it. This has been great. I appreciate every last minute. Hey, when you get out here to Denver, I don't know where your medical ailments lie, but if you need any Colorado help, just let me know. I broadcast out of a dispensary up here, so feel free to come take a tour if you'd like. I'd be happy to give you a tour of the place.
Cool, man. Best of luck to you. I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you very much. You have a great afternoon and a great weekend.
All right, later.
Bye. That's all I got for you this week, Cannapreneurs. Thank you for listening in, and thank you to everybody that's been supporting this community over the years. Keep following us after the show on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Mass Roots. We're out there. You can find us just about anywhere, even YouTube. So make sure to come back next week and join us for another show where we'll be discussing more topics, interviewing more guests, and this is getting bigger because of you. We'll see you next week.